Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bang with Mikey, episode 272. And like I said last podcast, every month is Black History Month, so happy Black History Month every month. Um, it was interesting because I'm recently single, as you guys know, been single. Me personally, I don't necessarily believe in being friends with a significant other after you guys break up, and I've always had that happen to me. Like it's like girls break, either I break up with them or they break up with me, and they want to be like, "Oh, can we be friends?" I'm like, "No, like I'm sorry, but we can't." Don't get me wrong. It's like I'm gonna be there for you, and I'm gonna still care about you because you still hold a place in my heart. But I can't be your friend. You know, I can't be talking to you all day, every day, sending text messages. Like whatever it is. And most women who I've dated ever since going back to my college days is like they've all had a kid or kids. It just comes to the territory, bro. Very rarely did I think I dated one or two girls who didn't have kids, but other than that, it's like number one, kids love me. And it's always crazy to me because people, just recently people have been pressuring me like, oh, like, and when I say people, I mean acquaintances and family members. They be like, oh, how come you don't have any kids yet? How come you're not married? This and this and that. And I had to break it down to them. I was like, marriage, yeah, it's one thing I want. I'm not rushing into it though because it's like, what for? Why rush into something when the statistics and I'm a stats guy, right? So it's like the statistics of it is like it just doesn't make any sense. It's like I'm gonna rush into something, possibly get the girl pregnant. Then what if a year from now, 2 years from now, I'm like, yo, this shit ain't gonna work out. I've literally seen that happen. Like where people they've had kids, they've got married, and it's like they realize 2, 3 years in, like, yeah, like this isn't it. You know, like the facade fades, and it's like, and I've literally seen people go through this. It's like, and I'm like, yo, it's like if you would have just slowed down and actually paid attention to what was going on, you probably would have seen everything that was happening. You know, like you would have seen the love bombing, you would have seen the control, trying to control the situation, the manipulation. You would have seen all of that. You know, and it's just something that I think of from time to time because it's like, yo, it's like that could have been me. In several different cases, right? And I thank God that I was smart enough to avoid that type of shit. Cause it's like having kids is a beautiful thing, bro. I'ma always stand on that hill because it is. It's like, but having kids with the wrong person, that's something that scares the shit out of me. And it's like I can't see myself doing that. And that to me is crazy because you don't it's not something that you just can make on a whim, right? It's not something that you can, just like, oh yeah, boom. Oh yeah, boom. You know? I still think of that video that I seen decades ago where she was talking, this lady was talking about finding out what your partner is like, how they handle conflict, how they handle X, Y, and Z, you know, if they have any history of a family, mental health illness or any type of, you know, conditions or anything like that, like, or how they handle their finances, what their credit score is, all that stuff, how much debt they have, you know what I mean? It's like, a lot of people don't think like that, bro, and it's like, I can't remember the name of that video, but I remember that lady was preaching. And she was an older black lady too. So it just naturally made me want to pay attention, you know? Because a lot of times, how I grew up, older black women didn't really speak unless they had something of importance to tell you. And So with that being said, that was an interesting thing too, because a lot of people don't. Um, they don't fact check. They don't do the interviews. They don't treat it like a job interview, because you should. Um, and the minute somebody doesn't want you talking to their former significant other, or talking to people who know them the best, that's a red flag. It's like the next relationship I'm in, I'm giving them like, yo, this is so and so's number. This is so and so's number. This is my best home. This is my homegirl's number. She's one of my best friends. Um, you got any questions or concern? Hit these three people up. You're like, what? It's like, yeah. It's like, because I'm not gonna have you out there, thinking everything good, thinking everything gravy, and it's not. I'm not gonna have you out there looking stupid. And I've seen people get divorced, and it's like, bro, you just wasted 20 plus years of your life for what? You got a gang of kids. And when I say a gang of kids, I mean a gang of kids, not just figuratively, but literally. With somebody who doesn't want to help you take care of them, somebody who doesn't want to help you in any facet. And the way I look at it, it's like yeah, it sucks. 100% it sucks. But it's also your fault, because you thought by having a baby or babies by this guy was gonna make him change. And I've seen it with guys too, and I just look at that and I think like, damn, bro. It's like, if I was in my 20s, there was um several several situations where I could have been a dad, bro. You know, like I was one of them kids growing up. It's like I lacked the self-confidence and the self-esteem because of my physical disability, and because of my I I wore what they call UFOs, which is basically it's a term for leg braces, right? And I walk with a abnormal gait. I used to walk pigeon toed too. And then on top of that too, I grew up in a household, you know, God rest my father's soul, but that nigga was not supportive at all. Yeah, he provided, yeah, he did X, Y, and Z and everything. But when it came down to actually being that emotional support, like the child in me never got it. And it's like, and I was having a conversation with my mom the other night, and I was like, and I said, excuse my language, but yeah, that nigga wasn't all that, you know. Like, yeah, he provided, yeah, he did X, Y, and Z and everything, which is what a man is supposed to do. But when it came time to actually be emotionally available and emotionally understanding, that nigga wasn't it. And it's like, it took me a long time to unlearn that shit, bro. Uh, I didn't unlearn that until I was in my mid to late 20s, when I literally moved to another state, and I was living with some family members, and I seen how they handled their relationship, how they were cordial with each other, how they were emotionally available, and I'm like, yo, okay, cool. And then I'm out there doing X, Y, and Z, making moves and whatnot. And it's like, I told myself, like, yo, it's like, you got a chance to become a better individual. Do that. You know? You got a chance to broaden your horizons. Do that. Um, and then fast forward, you know, I had my first meaningful relationship, in my, let's say mid 30s. And she opened up my eyes to a lot. A lot. And a lot of it was good. Some of it was like, okay, damn, I gotta fix this, you know? And it's like, but with me, it's like, I don't stay down for too long. I don't get caught up in X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yo, it's like no, it's cool, it's whatever, because it is. I'm not gonna sit there and pretend I know what's going on, you know. I can't remember the definition of the word, But the definition is somebody who who thinks and talks like they know it all. And I don't, you know, I don't sit there and pretend like I know it all because I don't. I'm learning every day. And I think a lot of people, I learn from a lot of people too. It's like just recently I had one of my good partners. He called me out the blue, and you know, so me and him were talking about his relationship and all that stuff, and I'm like, bro, you've been dealing with the same shit since the beginning. I know you tired, bro. Like I know you're tired. You gotta be tired. You gotta be tired with somebody who doesn't believe you, who just questions everything that you do, everything that you do, you know, who want to control the situation, and in reality, is like you can't, you know, like you can't control the situation because it's like, or whatever you do, because this individual, meaning her, she's not gonna believe you, and it's like. I told him, how many times can you have the same conversation with somebody before you get tired of having the same conversation? And he was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, there's got to be a point in time when you're like, I'm over this shit. I'm done with this. Because it's like, why sit here and talk to you when you don't believe me? You have your own insecurities. And mind you, these are grown-ass people. These are people in their 40s. I could understand if you're in your, late teens, early 20s, maybe even mid 20s. But if you're 25, 30 plus, 35 plus, and you still dealing with insecurities, bro, it's like, nigga, take your ass to therapy. And that's another thing too. I've actually looked into therapy. I had one of my good friends give me a few referrals, and so the guy's looking for an actual therapist that would fix my needs, because I didn't know that there were general therapists and there were guys that specialize in shit, right? So I'm literally just waiting. And yeah, I thought it was sad because that's my boy, and he's the type of dude that he deserves better, man. And I've told him that too. I was like, bro, it's like every relationship that you in, bro, is like you care more than it. You care more than a girl does. Excuse me. He's like, what? I was like, yeah. He's like, bro, you like, as like my boy, as much as I love you, you don't have the boundaries. Like you lack the boundaries to actually be in a healthy relationship. It's like a lot of these women will take advantage of you simply because they know that they can. And not just financially, but emotionally as well. It's like, I mean, everybody goes back and rereads the text messages and looks at pictures, whatever not. But it's like, when you have somebody that's out there that's just taking advantage of you and not appreciating you for who you are, and like that would piss anybody off. I don't care who you are. I'll make anybody mad. And that's the shit that he's been dealing with, man. I'm like, yeah, bro. It's like, who wants to deal with that? Who wants to deal with somebody who just doesn't want to get it together? Who doesn't want to recognize that they are their own problem. And it's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to do the work to stop being your own problem. Because I've literally had girls tell me like, well, I come to the conclusion that I'm my own problem. Like, yeah, you are. But what are you gonna do to fix it? A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I'm the cause of my own problem. I'm this, I'm that. But in reality, it's okay. But what are you doing to fix it? How are you fixing the situation? Because if you're not fixing it, you're actually enabling it too. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah. It's like, it's one thing to recognize it. It's a whole different ballgame to change that shit. Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame to realize that, yo, it's like what I'm going through is a microcosm, a cause and effect of my actions or inactions. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't want to admit to that. It's like, yo, it's like you're in this situation because, months ago or years ago, like you made this decision, you know? And who can you really blame? You can't blame anybody. You know, you can't sit there and say, "Oh, it's somebody else's fault. Or it's X, Y, and Z." But in reality, it's nobody else's fault. It's the fault is yours. You know, the fault is your inability to actually be emotionally available and understanding to what's going on around you. Um, and what's crazy to me is like a lot of these women will think, "Oh well, I got options," and it's it's so idiotic, for lack of better terms. It's so idiotic. Um, because they fail to realize that they're an option too. And I've literally told a lot of females that I know, it's like, yo, it's like you're not a like you don't have options. You are one of the options. And whatever else is out there just wants to fuck you. That's what it is, bro. Um, because no guy wants to take on somebody who has, and I kid you not, like I know girls who have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. Like no guy wants to take that on. They want to fuck you for the night. They want to, they want you to do X, Y, and Z for them. But ain't nobody gonna take that on, bro. It's like that's way too much of a headache. You know. I was watching this old clip with Trip Fontaine. That brother is just he's smart. Well, he's smart beyond his years. And he was saying it was this old school clip, and the girl was talking about marriage and everything too. She had just gotten, I think, her bachelor's or her master's or something. So she's in her 20s, and Trip was like, "Yo, he's like, don't make a man a center of your life, because people are gonna start asking you questions, and they're gonna start asking you X, Y, and Z. And it's like, go off and live your life. Go off and make mistakes and go off and do X, Y, and Z." Um, and and it's true. There's one girl that I know. Every relationship she's been in, she's been cheated on, and she's young. And I'm like, yo, did you ever stop and think that maybe it's you? And she's like, wait, what? I was like, yeah. You've been in what, 3, 4 relationships? She's like, yeah. And every single one of them you've been cheated on? And pretty much every single one of them, they've told you that they were cheating on you? Yeah. And they can give excuses, whatever it is, but I told her at the end of the day, it's like, that just shows you how much they don't care about you. The fact is that they told you that they've been cheating. The fact is that they told you that they're, that they're done. What does that tell you? You know, that's just somebody who's over their relationship, and there's nothing you can do about that. And I've always thought that was interesting because it's like a lot of people will sit there and make excuses about for somebody else, and I'm like, but you can't though. You know, you really can't get mad at that because people need to make time for other people. And I get it. Yeah, you busy, and everything, but you have to value the relationship too. It just can't be one sided. Um, and she was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah." Everybody's busy. Everybody, has things going on in their life. But it's like if you you have to have the ability to make time for people that you know that you say that you care about. You know, when I was in a relationship, you know, like there are times where it's like, you know, we would carve out, you know, a few hours a week because we know, like we're both professionals, we're both busy, you know what I mean? But like I always made time for you know to keep my schedule open for her, and vice versa until we didn't. And you know, a lot of shit in that last relationship happened, and that's probably a therapy session that I'm gonna talk to my I'm probably gonna talk to my new therapist about um because I think that's important, man. I think it's like in order for you to get better, you have to realize where your faults are. You know, I'm never going to sit there and say I'm perfect. I'm never going to sit there and say I'm X, Y, and Z because I'm not. I'm not going to sit there and say like and scream, "Oh, I'm so, you know, I'm a good person. Why does it keep happening to me?" Like, I'm not going to do that because that's weird. Because me personally, if you got to say that, then you're not a good person at all. You think you're a good person. That's the difference. You're not. Um, and I think that's the most disheartening thing where people just don't realize how fucked up of an individual they really are. Um, Instead of them getting better, instead of them doing X, Y, and Z, they actually go worse. You know, they date worse people than than their last boyfriend or girlfriend, and the person that they should be dating has been there the entire time. And it's like, my thing is like, okay, cool, um, but please don't make excuses. Like, don't make like it's like, oh my god, like so and so stop talking to me. It's like, yeah, because every time I, you know, like me, it's like every time I wanted to talk to somebody, like, and like they make excuses. Like, okay, cool, that's straight too. You know, all right, bet you ain't got time for me. Cool. You know, I'm gonna keep you in a certain category because then I know, okay, I can't have a conversation with this person because X, Y, and Z. There's always some excuse. There's always somebody else's fault. You know, it's like that the accountability, the self accountability isn't there. And what's crazy to me is that a lot of the times women will sit there and say all this shit and do all this shit, and I'm like, for what, bro? Like, you didn't want dude, but like you were mad that you know he went off and found somebody else that he was compatible with. Okay, cool. You know, what are you mad about? You know, or like me myself. You know, if a friend of mine gets into a relationship, and I'm different. You know, like I'm not gonna sit there and listen to all their problems or whatever it is because it's like, yo, it's like if you have all these issues, why don't you go talk to them? Why are you talking to me? I can't help you in that situation. I'm not the one sleeping with you. You know? I had this one person I know. She said like, "Oh, I don't bring up certain parts of my relationship out of respect for you." I told her point blank, like, I don't need to know. Like, like I said, I'm not the one in the relationship with you. I'm not the one going through these issues with you. That's you and your inability to set up boundaries. You know, and I remember telling somebody once, it's like, yo, it's either you are, you know, it's either you are unlearning new habits. I mean, unlearning old habits and bad habits and learning new habits. There's no trying. You know, there's absolutely no trying. And people look at me, they're like, what? I was like, yeah. It's like, you can't try and do something. It's either you do it or you don't. You know, stop thinking that just because you're trying to do something that you're making changes. It's like there's a lot of people that try everything and it doesn't work out for whatever reason. That's because they're not probably fully invested. It's like me as a former competitive bodybuilder, it's like, yo, it's like people want to be like, well, I'm trying to lose weight for a show, this and this and that. I'm like, yo, it's like, if that's the case, then maybe don't do a show. Just focus on the weight loss. You don't have to like have the goal of a show be that. You know, it's great to have a benchmark, but it's like if you're not fully invested into it, because usually when I hear people say that, like, oh, like the other day, I had somebody tell me like, oh, I gotta lose like 30 pounds in 6 weeks out. It's like you're not gonna make it. Like straight up, you're not gonna make it. You know, it's like, so stop focusing on like the number for the show, and just focus on your overall health. Because when she said that, I'm like, yeah, she ain't ready for that. Because she's probably been fucking around doing X, Y, and Z, not following the diet, not following the protocols, the shit that she's got to do. And now it's crunch time, and she's like, oh shit, I fucked around for the last, 15, 20 weeks, and I'm like, now my ass is, really up shit's creek. And yeah, it's like, it's always interesting to me, like when people, like that former friend of mine, when she's like, well, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, I'm like, yo, you're not doing anything though. Like, you love to talk about what you're doing, but that's it. And that's where for me is like, I have to recognize where there are some people who I have to move to a different category. Because I have no problem basically moving friends from one category to the other. And that other category is acquaintanceships. I have no problem doing that. Because it's like, if we're not talking goals, future goals, making moves, money moves, whatever it is, if we're not talking anything like that, then why are we talking? It's like, I've always thought that was weird. It's like, you're gonna sit there and like express to me X, Y, and Z what you want to do, but you're not putting in the work to go get it done. Okay, that's that's weird. Because it is. I don't care what people tell you. That's fucking strange. And a lot of the times people will sit there and be like, oh well, I got yeah, you know what? Yes, yeah, your situation is complex. Yes, I understand all that. I get all that, but so is everybody else. You know. So is everybody else's situation. Everybody has something going on. Everybody has some sort of, some sort of situation that's requiring their attention. Your situation don't make you special. Your lack of action is concerning. And a lot of people will sit there and call me an asshole, but I'm like, no, I'm not. Because if I was an asshole, you probably want to talk to me, and it's like, or what I've been noticing too is like a lot of people will naturally fall off because they don't want to be held accountable. I remember once, and I've spoken about this person on previous episodes. It's one individual was telling me like, oh yeah, I'm gonna wait till my kid, who I think the kid was like 9 and 10 at the time, in order to pursue her, her new career, right? And I'm like, yo, so you gonna wait? She wanted to wait till the kid graduated high school. I'm like, yo, so you gonna wait 8, 9, 10, what? Kids graduate high school at 18. So yeah, you gonna wait about a decade, a little bit less than a decade to go pursue your goal, huh? Like you talked about going to school, talked about finishing up your, finishing up your bachelor's degree. Like you talk about doing X, Y, and Z, but you get nothing done. It's like, after a while, it's like, just stop talking. Stop talking and just like go do what you want to do. Like stop telling people, oh yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, yada yada yada. And when it's time to show up, your ass ain't fucking ready. Cause you wanna know why? Cause you haven't been doing what you've been telling other people, what you've been talking about doing. You've been running your lips. That's about it. And a lot of people will look at me and be like, "Oh, well, like you a hater." I'm like, "No, I'm not a hater. I'm not." Like I want people to, to reach their goals and do everything that they set their mind to. But at the same time, I'm gonna hold you accountable. I'm not gonna sit there and be like, "Oh yeah, it's cool for you not to do X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada." Like, no, it's not. Like, hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Be proud of your goals. Be proud of your accomplishments. Like, and stop thinking that you have to appease everybody. Stop thinking that you have to be like, "Oh yeah, well, so and so is doing this, so and so is doing that." It's like, you know, and it's like, and then you start looking around at their friends. That's a telltale sign right there. Like, you start looking at their friends and you're like, damn, all these motherfuckers do is talk too. Then you start looking around and you're like, I wonder why. That old saying, birds of a feather flock together. Birds of a feather flock together, and it's true. Ray Allen had this quote in his book. He said, "If you hang around, if you hang around certain people, like you'll become the fifth version of whatever it is that they're doing." And he used to always say like, "Yo, like show me your friends, and I can show you who you're gonna become." And a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people don't believe that. I mean, out of my friend group, if we're talking money, I make the least amount of money. But at the same time, I can put myself in situations where I can talk to certain individuals and make the connections and do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I don't have to sit there and bullshit people. The work speaks for itself, bro. The confidence comes through. It's like, and I think a lot of the times people will sit there and instead of them being honest with you, instead of them being honest with themselves, they want to be like, "Oh yeah, the yada 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 whoop de whoop," and I'm like, but you can't though. Like, what are you getting mad about? Why are you upset? You didn't reach your goals. You didn't reach your milestones because all you did was talk about them. But when it came time to put in work about it, you just wasn't feeling it. And I think that's the most disheartening thing. Whereas people will sit there and come up with excuses rather than do the work. Because talking about your goals is a hell of a lot easier than actually completing your goals. So the next time you're around, I don't care who it is, acquaintance, friend, family member, significant other, if you have kids, whatever not, hold everybody accountable. But don't forget to hold yourself accountable too. We're all here to uplift people. We're all here to become better versions of ourselves. And people need to know that, yeah, while your goals are important, don't just talk about it. Have some action behind it. Know what you want to do and go out there and do it. Like, stop thinking that, oh yeah, it's X, Y, and Z, so it's yada yada yada. Like, no, it's like, if you want to get certain things done, go get it done. But please don't sit there and blame your situation on something that you have complete control over, because there's always somebody else out there who has a worse situation than you and who went off and got that shit done. So anyway, y'all, this is about 34 minutes of your life that y'all won't get back. Hope y'all keep it in 4 P's, private player, positive pushing. And I will see you next week, Sunday. I love y'all. Like I always say, know your worth because you're better than what you are. All right, y'all. Peace. Happy Sunday.